Hello everybody, this is Chris. I'm recording for Pure MTGO MagicGatheringStrat. Today we're going to be going over Stompy and all the... My particular list here is a very aggressive list. It's from the days of old. This is a list I used to play a long time ago. So here we have the mana base is 17 forests, and this is because we're an aggro deck, we're monocolor. We only need the 17 forests. The creature base, I see a lot of 1-drops here, and I've got all these 1-drops sorted out by spells or creatures, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see them all on one screen. So to start us off with, we've got Null Sentinels, which are a 2/2 for 1, which is pretty awesome. Got a little pseudo drawback that it doesn't untap unless you cast a green spell, basically. That's pretty well negated though by this chick right here, Quirion Ranger. She does so much for your deck that it's almost impossible to even list it all. But we've got she's a 1/1 for green, and that's not really great in this. That's not really on par for this, but you can return a forest you control to its owner's hand to untap target creature, and you can only use this once a turn. Now, what you can do with this is you can untap the Nettle Sentinels. You can also untap creatures to get free Gather Courages. You can untap opponents' creatures so that they have to block Shinnin of Life's Roar. You can cheat on lands, because if you only have one land in your opening hand along with Quirion Ranger, then you actually get to cheat on lands. Basically, you get to tap the land for mana, bounce up the Quirion Ranger and replay it, and then you get to cast any one of these 2-drops like Garruk's Companions and stuff. So yeah, the Quirion Ranger just does, and then when you replay the land also you have this active landfall with Groundswell. It's not even to mention the synergies she has with some of the sideboard cards like Scattershot Archer or Viridian Longbow. So yeah, she just does it all for this deck. And then you have another 2/2 for 1, which is Skurgan Pitskulk, Bloodthirst 1. And interestingly, creatures with power less than his Pitskulk's power can't block it. So if he's a 2/2, nothing with power less than 2 can block it. If he's a 5/5, nothing with power less than 5 can block it. And this becomes super relevant, as you'll see. Our final 1-drop is Young Wolf. While he's not really that particularly impressive by himself, he's a 1/1 for green, but he has Undying, so he comes back as a 2/2 whenever he attacks. It makes it really annoying for opponents to block or remove or guess verdict or whatever with the card. So yeah, he's the final just piece of the puzzle that's missing. For our pump spells, we have 3 Gather Courages. These cards are very good against lightning bolts or just generally chump blocking people, or when your opponent's trying to make trades with you that you don't necessarily want. So, and this is convocability means you can tap and untap a creature, and rather than pay Gather Courage's mana cost. So this comes in really handy whenever you have an untapped Nettle Sentinel that you cast the Gather Courage, the Nettle Sentinel untaps itself, so you didn't actually do anything at all. And then once you synergize with the Quirion Ranger as well. Groundswells are +4/+4. Most of the time this is a burn spell, but it can be used to save your creatures from lightning bolts and stuff with +2/+2. It's always nice. Hunger the Howlpack, you're trying to get, your creatures are gonna die. You're gonna send them in harm's way. So more often than not, this becomes a +3/+3 permanently on your creatures, like an enchantment. You can also sort of force unfavorable trades with Young Wolves, chump block with Young Wolf, and then Hunger the Howlpack to make your Pitskulk an unblockable 5/5 next turn. So Hunger the Howlpack is really sweet. It's very nice to have it in this deck. Vines of Vastwood is easily the best pump spell in the deck. It's a green spell with a kicker of green, and your opponent, it says target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. So you can actually use this on your opponent's creature as well. Basically gives your opponent's creature hexproof, or your creature hexproof until end of turn. If it's kicked though, that creature gets +4/+4, so it can become a burn spell as well. Then you have Rancor, which is the +2/+0 and trample to enchantment aura. And whenever it's put in the graveyard from the battlefield, you can return it to your hand. Unfortunately, that means if it's counterspelled, it doesn't go back, or if your opponent bounces your creature in response to the Rancor, it doesn't go back. But this is another must answer or must counter threat that your opponents have to deal with. Rancor is very good. For the 2-drops, I've chosen this 2-drop suite because it's really aggressive, and that's really kind of where I want to be with Stompy. If I'm not winning in the first 5 or 6 turns of the game, it's pretty unlikely that I'm going to win. It can happen, of course, but it becomes pretty unlikely. So we have 4 of the Garrix Painters, a 3/2 trample for 2, which is always nice. We've got 2 of the Shin of Life's Roar because he just kind of clears the way for blockers, right? He's a big lure. That's the effect that we call it in Magic. You can also like suit him up with like a Rancor or 2 and like a big Morbid Hunger, and he becomes just Wrath on a stick every turn. It becomes impossible for other creature decks to deal with. Then finally we have Wild Mongrels, which are they can just become like 5/5s or 6/6s, just kill your opponent on the turn after they come down. It's pretty relevant, and this deck is capable of turn 3 wins. It's much more likely that you're goldfishing on turn 4 or turn 5, and Wild Mongrels really help that. For the sideboard, we have a single Bone Splitter. We're going to bring this in against Affinity or decks that look to like 1-for-1 our creatures, just so that every single creature we bring out, they have to kill. Gleeful Sabotages are for Affinity and Delver, especially. Nourish we have in here for burn, because we don't have any life gain other than Nourish. Scatter Chargers are mostly for Delver. Spore Frogs are for like Delver Fiend and stuff. And some interesting interaction with Spore Frog is you can actually sack the Spore Frog at any time just to activate your Hunger. So like during their combat phase, you sack the Spore Frog, you throw a Hunger on your Pit Sculpt, and you swing back and kill them the next turn. Then we got a Utility Viridian Longbow. This is going to be brought in against like Elves or other Stompy decks. Maybe Delver. Not entirely sure on that one yet. But yeah, that's the deck, and hopefully it'll work out well for me. It's worked out well for me in the past, and I don't have any disappointments with it. So thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the show.